Digital Foundry is proudly sponsored by the Logitech G935 headset.
Hello and welcome back to another DF Direct. This time we're still talking E3. The show's over. I'm back here in Germany, but there's still 4 other games I want to talk about. And to do that, I am joined by my good friend Coury Carlson from My Life in Gaming. Coury, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to kind of bounce some ideas around. You've seen these games on video. I've played these games. So what are we talking about today? Let's start. We're going to talk about Luigi's Mansion, Ultimate Alliance 3, Mario and Sonic Olympic, I guess the 2020 game, and of course, New Super Lucky's Tale, which is an interesting one as it's a port of the Xbox One game. So what do you say we start with Luigi?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so I'll be Luigi, you're Gooigi. No. So yes, Luigi's Mansion 3, I think that was announced last year.
Right.
Some very light footage, sort of, I think Luigi's Mansion 3 was even like the working title at the time, but it's official, it's Luigi's Mansion 3. I think it's coming out later this year, and it's pretty good so far.
Who is developing it this time?
So it's the same team that did the 3DS game, I guess Dark Moon, so Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon it was. So it's that team again, so it's not the original Japanese studio, and it's not Grezzo, which did the port of Luigi's Mansion to 3DS. So, but this is their first big console game, I guess you could say, in this style.
Oh yeah, I mean they've basically done portable games up to this point.
I think mostly. There may be a console game in their history, but yes, they haven't done one in a while. I think they also did like Metroid Prime Federation Hunters or whatever it was called.
Right.
But this one, I don't know what engine it's running, but the game looks excellent on the Switch. So, from the DF perspective, I did a few pixel counts, and it's a weird one. So I do get a native 1080p on the pixel counts, but when it moves, it sort of breaks apart, almost as if it's using some sort of, it's either like a really strong temporal anti-aliasing, or they're doing some kind of reconstruction. I'm not entirely sure yet, and that's something obviously I'll check out when we get closer to release. But even still, image quality was really good for a Switch game.
Yeah, I mean, are the environments that much bigger than previous games?
So I guess the big difference here is that this time it's set in like a big hotel tower, and they're like kind of doing this like each floor of the hotel seems to be a different theme, if you will.
I see.
So you're kind of climbing the tower, and it's unlike the 3DS game. It's a contiguous game, so it's not based on missions.
So more similar to the first game.
Exactly. It's much more...
Which is good in my opinion. I felt that the second game was very good, but it was a little bit too long.
It kind of drug on, and it got a little bit tedious after a while. I definitely agree with that. So obviously I've only played the demo of 3, but it reminds me more of the original in that sense. But there's also much more of a puzzle-heavy element to it that I really liked. So the Luigi thing now, I think he was introduced in the remake of 1 for multiplayer mode.
Oh, okay. And I have not played that one.
Right, so what you do in this demo that I really liked is like you walk into a room and it's like, oh, there's spikes here, or you need to get down. This is actually the best one. Near the end, you need to go down to the basement, and there's an elevator, but the elevator only moves when you use your vacuum cleaner to spin a fan around, right? But if you do that, you're not in the elevator. So what you do is you can spawn Luigi at any time, and then go back and forth between Luigi and Luigi. So you kind of have 2 characters to control. So you will send one to the elevator, then the other blows the elevator down, and then the guy that went down, you switch back to him, you do something on the ground floor, then you bring the elevator back up, you send the other guy in, you use the first guy that went down to hit a different fan, bring it down part way for a secret. It's basically just about manipulating the environment and getting through it by using 2 different characters. And in that sense, it's almost like you have to, the puzzle is like, how do I get actual Luigi from the start of the room to the end of the room? And you kind of have to use both characters to do that. And I thought that was...
Almost like Lost Vikings-esque.
Yes, exactly. That's a really good comparison, actually. It's exactly like Lost Vikings in that sense. And that's new, I think, to these Luigi games. And it's a really nice touch. I
mean, it does look very good. I'm more interested in playing it than I was in revisiting the first game on the 3DS. I think that it's a good series to bring back again for sure.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's really charming, and it's the first time we've had a big console release, I guess, since the GameCube launch title.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about how long it's been.
Yeah, exactly.
18 years.
And so the world I played in this demo was like medieval themed, but obviously it seems like they're doing a bunch more. They've also kind of expanded the mechanics, so now when you grab ghosts, you can actually swing them back and forth rapidly and smash them against walls and floors. There's like this suction cup arrow thing you can use to like pull down structures and walls and objects, basically. Like there's these shield guys you encounter early on where you have to fire the suction cup with the shield, then pull the shield off, then stun them with your flashlight, and then suck them up.
Ah. The slamming thing made me think of the Hulk and the Avengers when he takes Loki and whips him around.
Yeah, it's like that, or one of my favorite PS1 games, Wild 9, if you've ever played that.
Yeah.
From Shiny. It's actually a lot like Wild 9. So there you go. It's the sequel to Wild 9 we've been waiting for. But, yeah, so aside from that, like visually, if you're watching the video now, you can see it really does look nice. Being a console game, the level of detail is ramped way up. I mean, Luigi's Mansion 1 was kind of a showpiece for the GameCube. And maybe this isn't as much of a showpiece now, but the character models, the environment models, the textures, the shadows, the lighting, it's all really, really nice looking. It's a huge step up from the 3DS games and, of course, the GameCube game. So in that sense, it looks great. The only complaint right now is that I did run it through our frame rate analysis tool, and there is frame pacing issues. Which is a little disappointing, but at the same time, when I did the 3DS port of Luigi's Mansion, I did a video on that. There was also frame pacing issues in the GameCube original.
Oh,
which
really?
is really, it's really uncommon for games on those systems to have such issues. Because of the way they manifest, it's not something you often saw, but it did occur on the GameCube, and it's back. But there's really shouldn't be any shared code here, so it's a very strange thing. And the 3DS sequel, Dark Moon, actually used an unlocked frame rate, so it behaved totally differently.
Right.
So I don't really know what's going to happen there, if they're going to fix it for launch. I mean, I hope so. We're going to have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of
they still got a few
the
months.
long and short of it, right? They've got time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that one's shaping up good. So let's move on to the next title then. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. So, do you know anything about this series? Because this is a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, I've played I played the first two a little bit. I played the X-Men. What is it? X-Men Legends or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
A little bit, and I am personally more excited about this than Square's Avengers game by a fair margin. I feel like Square's Avengers made me a lot more interested and brought a lot more attention to just how well, how good this is looking.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing. You're right. So I guess we should clarify the developer situation. So yeah, Square Enix is doing one. It does look nice. It's by the Tomb Raider team, the recent Tomb Raider, so Crystal Dynamics. Ultimate Alliance 3 is now it's a Switch exclusive, and it's being made by Team Ninja. Which
that is such a weird combination.
Yeah, because the originals definitely were not. I think Raven Software was involved, some other developers. And I mean, the first one launched in 2006 on just about everything, including PlayStation 3. And it was one of the few games that supported 1080p at launch.
Right.
Even though it ran horribly at 1080p mode, so you didn't want to use it. But the series was very Western, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, now we have the MCU. The Avengers is really big. And then it's like, oh, well, now we've got Team Ninja making it, which it's a strange decision, but it's
they have a lot
cool
more money to pour into it, I guess.
Though, well, it's more like I wouldn't have expected to see that team of all, companies working on a game like this. It's not something I would have expected. But in the end, so I played it with 4 people, and my thought on what this is, you ever play Gauntlet Dark Legacy or Gauntlet Legends?
Yep, I have the GameCube version.
It's that, but more polished.
I mean, it's a great game,
Exactly. It's pretty much that. Like, except for, you have the different Avengers or the heroes with their different abilities. But the core gameplay loop reminds me so much of that game. You've got the same sort of dynamic camera angles. You're kind of running around from area to area, beating up guys, getting loot, you know. The whole gameplay loop is a lot like Gauntlet Legends in a good way. Like, I really thought I wasn't sure what to think, but it was really fun in 4-player mode. A bit chaotic at times, but it's solid.
But it's, you know, the multiplayer is what it's all about, really.
Yeah, exactly. So in that sense, it seems like a great local co-op game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it supports online. I would just expect it would, honestly, in this
Yeah.
day and age. But either way, we were there gathered around a TV, 4 controllers, 4 people, and it was just like, for me, I was thinking, man, this could have been like on the Dreamcast. This is the kind of feeling I got from it. They kind of have the cel-shaded look.
Yeah.
It's not a stunning looking game,
But it doesn't really need
but
to
it
be.
looks good enough. It doesn't need to be. And they made it very readable. All the characters have a very distinct colored outline around them, denoting, you know, who is who, so you don't really lose track of your player because the action is kind of crazy, so you might otherwise.
Yeah, and you know there's going to be a ton of characters to choose from.
Exactly. So there's that. The only complaint right now, I guess, is that so it does run at 30 frames per second rather than 60, which is kind of consistent with the series anyway. But, you know, being Team Ninja, I kind of held out hope that, hey, maybe they'll go for 60, but
Right.
alas, they did not. But it does have good image quality. I think it's dynamic, just based on checking it out. I haven't, you know, again, we'll do this in the final video when we look at the game, but I did see some 1080p shots, but also it seemed to dip below that to like maybe 900p range. So it does seem to change, which is something that Team Ninja's engine does support. So that's cool.
Right.
But yeah, so
And depending on how chaotic it gets, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so in a way, it actually, it reminded me a bit of playing Contra the Rogue Core, but better, if you will, because Contra also seems to play more like a game like Gauntlet Legends as opposed to Contra. So if you come at that as like, oh, it's a Contra game, it's very disappointing, but if you come at it more as like, oh, it's more like a Gauntlet style game, then it's like, oh, that's not so bad. But Ultimate Alliance 3, I do feel, is actually the better game right now.
Really?
It's more polished, it's fun. It just plays really well, and it's a great local co-op game. So in that sense, yeah, I feel like they're heading in the right direction, and I'm curious to see the final result. So the next one then, this is a weird one, and I can't even remember the official title. It's like Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, I think, maybe. So obviously the Olympics are going to Tokyo or Japan next year, I guess.
So Japanese companies want to capitalize on that in a big way.
Yes, and these Mario and Sonic games have been huge. They sell a lot. And so I did play this in multiplayer, and it was interesting. So I actually had a good time with the little mini games, I have to admit. I've not really played with these games much before, but so the first one we did was actually the karate mode, I guess it was.
Right.
And at first chance you think, oh, it's like a fighting game, but no, it's more, it really does have more to do with the actual sport, I suppose. But it did result in some crazy moments. Like, I think I was playing as Amy, and my buddy was playing as Bowser, and he's just like, he's throwing his giant spiked foot in her face, like so hard. It's like, everybody's like, whoa. It looks kind of insane, actually.
Yeah. You know, I haven't really played any of the other ones, I gotta admit, but they always reminded me of the old Epic's Commodore 64 games, like the winter games, summer games, California games, stuff like that.
You're right. It is, yes, it's exactly like that in a good way as well. So we're drawing all these comparisons to different types of games here, but yes, it is like that. It's a bunch of it's a huge selection of mini games, and each one is kind of, you kind of compete single player or multiplayer with others, and it does play out like that. I did a skateboarding one, for instance, which was kind of fun. I was trying to play it like Tony Hawk. That doesn't really work. It's not that mechanically dense.
Yeah.
It's a little more automated, but it was still fun, grinding, doing some jumps, and that actually worked pretty well. There was, most of the events were locked in the demo, and there's, just a few selectable characters, but the concept is good, and visually it looks great. It's under 1080p, but still, it's a nice looking game. I think people playing it will be perfectly happy. It's not typically the type that we would necessarily cover on DF, which I guess is why I haven't in the past. But having actually played it now, I'm like, okay, this is actually, it's a pretty fun little game.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dr. Eggman's weird proportions and in his swimsuit, you know, his bodysuit that he surfs in. It's like it's a little weird.
It's a strange thing, but it works. But yeah, there's that. So, and then one of the weird things about E3 was they actually had a climbing wall there specifically for this game.
Oh.
And that's where people could win that one Sega shirt with all the circle of systems around it. That was one of the ways you could get that shirt if you were in it. But then there was one other game I guess we should talk about. So new Super Lucky's Tale. So you know Super Lucky's Tale.
Yeah. I mean, I played the Xbox One version, and it really didn't do a lot for me.
Right.
Played through the first two worlds and got kind of bored with it.
Yeah, it's one of those games. I do like it, but I don't love it. It gets a little bit tedious. I actually preferred the original VR experience compared to the actual console game. That was more interesting to me. But yeah, it's a decent little game. But it's interesting because it was kind of an Xbox exclusive.
Right.
And it was shown, I mean, it's not a first-party game, I don't think. But, you know, with the whole Microsoft, Nintendo sort of partnerships that we've been seeing, it's, you know, first there was Cuphead. And again, I think they were free to publish on other platforms, so they did. Now there's this. And this one is a Unity game. And on Xbox, it runs at 60 frames per second, but with occasional bits of slowdown.
Right. And
on the Switch, they've dropped that down to 30 FPS.
Oh, really?
It seems to be sub 1080p, though I'll have to double check that to be sure. But yeah, it's basically a softer, less performant version of the Xbox game.
But I think that it's more geared towards the audience of the Switch.
I agree. So it's actually it's kind of a good fit. Exactly, you're right. So I'm not sure how well it's sold on Xbox, but I do feel like this is the kind of game that might be appreciated more on the Switch. So yeah, it's kind of a good choice to see there, and I'm curious if we'll see any other kind of similar situations where there was a Microsoft game. Again, not necessarily first party, but you know, a game that was exclusive to Xbox showing up on the Switch in this way.
Right.
But the other, you know, the port seemed competent, but not stunning, is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's more like I would revisit it on the Switch for sure. You know, it makes me think of like Ukulele was a lot more fun to play on the Switch. Because it just feels like the platform that it's more fun to play those kind of games on.
Ukulele is also Unity, and the original PS4 and Xbox One versions also run at 30 frames per second, but at a slightly higher resolution. The Switch version also runs at 30 frames per second. It felt very, very close. It didn't feel like a downgrade. I mean, there were changes, but it was extremely close to matching its bigger brothers.
Right.
Whereas new Super Lucky's Tale, you know, the degradation in both frame rate and resolution, it's a little more noticeable. But again, you know, 30 FPS platformer, perfectly playable, especially this type of platformer. So yeah, it could work pretty well as a Switch game. So, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, it's definitely worth checking out, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it from my Nintendo reporting that I saw at E3.
Did you have a chance to? Was Panzer Dragoon playable anywhere?
It was not playable, no.
Okay.
Or at least I didn't have a chance to play it. So I would like to see more of that though. I'm very excited to check it out.
Yeah, same here. I mean, there was a few announcements during the Direct that was just I was not expecting at all, and that was one of them. That one and the Trials of Mana remake was a huge surprise. That
looks awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're doing that. Honestly, it's a fantastic thing.
You know, for people like ourselves who have been, they kind of grew up playing the fan translation, and finally having this game translated for real all these years later, it's almost surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of it for this video. So, you know,
okay,
we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for joining me, Coury.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if you enjoyed this video, as always, be sure to like and subscribe. Ring the notification bell up there, to get instant updates from Digital Foundry. And of course, follow us on Twitter, including Coury, of course, and check out their awesome channel too while you're at it. And until next time, this is John and Coury signing off.
Featuring 2.4 GHz wireless, 50mm Pro G audio drivers, and DTS Headphone X 2.0 surround sound technology under the hood, the G935 headset delivers the ultimate wireless audio solution for gamers, whether you're playing on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, or mobile. Order yours today from Logitech G.